probably believe that, well, I definitely believe that y'all probably are what I call the 90 percenters. The 90 percenters are those of us in the world who kind of recognize the buzzwords that we use: neoliberalism, capitalism, homophobia, transphobia, sexism, misogyny, pissed that Warren dropped off, and pissed at Sanders, and all this other shit, right? I mean, we have our own lexicon. We have our own set of words that we use. Intersectionality is one of our favorite ones, right? That we use. I only call us 90 percenters, though, because even within that high level of unity around our language and our worldview, there's 10% we probably don't agree with. Because I'm a reproductive justice activist, I may feel that working for abortion rights is the number one thing I need to work on. But someone else may believe that climate change is the number one thing that they need to work on. And someone else may believe that trans rights is the number one thing they need to work on, or indigenous rights, or disability rights. It doesn't really matter. The point is we're 90 percenters with 10% disagreement. The problem that I see as 90 percenters is that we keep trying to solve the 10%. Why? Why would we even set ourselves up to do that when the only way to solve the 10% would be to have clones? People who identically think exactly like you think. Since that is not scientifically feasible, it certainly is not politically feasible. Outside of the 90 percenters, or what I call the 75 percenters. So we have 75% of political agreement, not a high degree of unity, but we have a lot of shared values. So as a reproductive rights and reproductive justice activist, I may believe that the Girl Scouts are my 75 percenters. They're probably not going to teach anybody about hardcore abortion rights activism, but they're going to teach about girls' and women's empowerment. They're going to be talking about service to the community in a way that I can get with. I would spend none of my time trying to turn a Girl Scout leader into a 90 percenter. Matter of fact, the language I would have to use to try to persuade her would probably turn her the hell off, because it sounds very elitist. It sounds very in-groupish. They wouldn't recognize intersectionality if it slapped them, kind of thing. But that doesn't mean the Girl Scouts aren't on my side, or I can't figure out how to work with them, not trying to turn them into 90 percenters, but leaving them as 75 percenters. Outside of the 75 percenters are what I call the 50 percenters. Now, these are folks like my parents. Yeah. I think that's as best as they would have ever gotten. My father was an immigrant from Jamaica. Very conservative, went into the military, spent 26 years in service to Uncle Sam in the Army. Came out hyper-patriotic, a member of the National Rifle Association, had Smith & Wesson signs in our front yard when the Klan threatened the family one year. That was Dad. Mom was a hyper-Christian Southern Texas Baptist woman, Southern Baptist Texas woman, maybe I should say it that way. She believed birth control was a Bible between the knees. You held that Bible, you weren't going to get pregnant, both literally and figuratively. So Mom and Dad and I didn't have a whole lot of common language, even though I knew they loved me and all this other stuff. But they didn't understand me because, Mom would say, well, I've got one son that's a pharmacist, and I've got another son that's an architect, and Loretta just doesn't go to jail often. That's how they explained being a social justice activist. Because they didn't believe in that. They were kind of just, to get along as a black family in this society, you stay quiet, you melt in, you do all the American dream stuff, and that's the way you're going to succeed. They didn't believe in active resistance, and as a matter of fact, they were glad when Dr. King got killed, and they said so, because they thought he was an embarrassment to the black community. He wasn't the melt in and get along kind of guy. as far as they were concerned. But my parents and I, 50%ers that they are, we share some values. We share strong family values. As dysfunctional as my family is, we still love each other. We enjoy coming together at the family reunions, even if we have to stay quiet. Well, I don't stay quiet. But, you know, we got childhood sexual abuse going on in my family. So, of course, here I'm the feminist calling attention to it with the same brother that I need to hug. Yeah. They believe in community service. They're the ones that sent me out at age 11 to work at the local hospital, working with people coming home from the Vietnam War who were missing most of their limbs, delivering library books to them as a candy striper. So they inculcated in their 8 kids an obligation to serve the community. That's where my passion for social justice activism came from, my parents and stuff. They did not believe in just being isolated as a nuclear family. Our job was to help the community, and the community's job was to help us. This is what we did, kind of stuff. And so my parents would definitely be 50%ers, though, because I could never use any of this language I use with y'all, with them. You know, my father invited me to come lecture at his local VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars thing. You gotta have to be in the military to know all this stuff. But anyway, his local VFW chapter, and he was the president. And so I could come in there and talk about, you know, what Uncle Sam has done and the dangers of capitalism and the military-industrial complex and all that stuff, not to a bunch of veterans, most of whom had been shot up in multiple wars. So I chose a different tactic. I talked about Uncle Sam promised y'all lifetime health care, and he's reneged on the deal because of the changes that the people in power have now made to health care for veterans. So I could talk all about neoliberalism without saying the words. And I got them because they knew Uncle Sam had privatized veterans' health care. And they were getting screwed, even though they had been shot up in multiple wars under one deal that the government then reneged on. And so these 50%ers, I'm not going to spend any time trying to turn them into 75 or even 90%ers. It's not necessary. All I want them to do is, when the going gets rough, be with me as a 50%er when we take on the healthcare fight. You see what I'm saying? And the problem with the 50%ers is that it's very possible that if I don't give them some attention, they could easily be swayed by the 25%ers.